Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by your good old pal, Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a Jets victory. And as you saw, I put into the description of this video, it's a win that brings the Winnipeg Jets up to 700. Okay, so let's rewind it quickly. Game 42. I say if the Winnipeg Jets are going to make it to the playoffs, they're basically going to have to go at a 700 winning percentage. So through the first 10 games of that, the 25%, the quarter point of that, the Winnipeg Jets have done just that. They've gone 700. They take 14 points out of a possible 20 through a last stretch here. Doing exactly what I had suggested they would need to do to close the gap and get to the playoffs. So taking care of things on their end, that's how it goes. Now they got to do it again and again and again, 3 more times. Maybe that gets them there. Maybe it doesn't. Here's the problem with that whole thing is if the teams that you are chasing pick up their game as well, it's a moving line, right? Like that line that I had said where they go 700, it's based on the idea that those teams keep playing the way that they've been playing, that they don't improve as well. And the problem is they have a team like the Anaheim Ducks, who the Winnipeg Jets were chasing, just coming off 7 straight wins. And if you take a look at it now, the Winnipeg Jets, after this 10-game spot, they find themselves, they've gained 3 points. So they're 8 points back of a playoff spot. One of those teams they're chasing is the LA Kings, who won tonight, and the LA Kings put themselves in that 8th spot right now, I believe. Yes, they are, but they got a game in hand against the Winnipeg Jets. The San Jose Sharks up 3-1 right now. If they win, the Jets will be 8 points behind them, and San Jose would also have a game in hand. The Seattle Kraken playing right now, I believe they were up 1-0. If they win, they would also be 8 points up on the Winnipeg Jets. So that line that they're chasing, it's basically 3 teams. The Mammoth now are 11 points up on the Winnipeg Jets. Here's the issue. If a team like the LA Kings or the San Jose Sharks, if they were to win tonight, win their game in hand, it means that after going 700 after a 10-game stretch, the Winnipeg Jets will have gained 1 point. 1 point in 10 games. Needing to close an 11-point gap, that's what it would take. And here's the other thing that I think is tricky news here before we get to the game, before we hop into the Toyota on the Jim Pattison Toyota on Region opening drive, is the stretch that the Winnipeg Jets just had here. It was one of those lower degree of difficulties. I don't think that things have changed much since I said at the beginning of the year that the Winnipeg Jets are a team that when the degree of difficulty goes up, it's tough for them to get over that line. When the degree of difficulty goes down, that's when they've been succeeding. Their last 10 games are against the New Jersey Devils, not a playoff team. The Red Wings, a playoff team. They lost that game 5-1. The Florida Panthers, not a playoff team. They lost that game 2-1 in overtime. The Blues, not a playoff team. They win that game 3-1. The Chicago Blackhawks, not a playoff team. They lose that game 2-0. The Toronto Maple Leafs, not a playoff team. They lose that game in overtime 4-3. The Wild, a playoff team. They beat them 6-2. The Islanders at the time were a playoff team, but have fallen below that line. So not a playoff team now. They beat them 5-4. The Devils before that, not a playoff team. They beat them 4-3. And the Kings now, at the moment, they beat them. They are a playoff team, but if San Jose wins, they'll fall below that line. That's a lot of not playoff teams in the last 10 games. This was a make hay point of the schedule. It's going to get more difficult for the Winnipeg Jets as they go forward. The Lightning, Panthers again, Stars, Canadiens, Canucks, not so bad, Ducks, Sharks, Blackhawks, Lightning, so on and so forth. It gets tougher. So this was a time that you should expect that the Winnipeg Jets were going to have success. If they were going to have success, they had a 700. That's successful. But you have to ask yourself, when I'm listing off the teams and the fact that the Winnipeg Jets were playing a whole bunch of teams out of the playoffs, do you think they can match that 700? Do you think that they can do that over and over again as the degree of difficulty goes up? And even if they do, are those players that they're teams they're chasing going to fall apart to the degree that they're not just gaining 1 point during that 700 stretch? let's talk about what we've seen as of late. Going into this game, they'd lost 4 of 5, but they'd gained points. It's part of an overarching stretch where they do get 700, but tonight they play a game. I'm not a big fan of this game for the Winnipeg Jets. And I got to say, we had a conversation. Some of you would have tuned in and seen it. And by the way, hop in the Toyota. Let's get going on the Toyota opening drive before we bring in Ken here. If we're comparing this game to the last game, and let's do that because the last game was apparently a pond hockey game where they played the Detroit Red Wings, and it was a 1-1 game heading into the third period where Detroit blew it open. I see it as a game where the Jets were playing, a grind it out, let's not have a lot going on hockey and hope that the other team makes a mistake. You heard my whole thing about that. It's a risky game to play because if you make the mistake or if the other team makes a play, now you're down. Now you're down against a good team. You got to score your way back into a game when you're not doing a lot offensively. That's not going to work for you. Tonight, a different story offensively. But is it the Winnipeg Jets? Now, one thing it is putting Gabe Vilardi up on that top line. Clearly, that line is magic when they're given an edge. And if the other team's going to give them an edge, they're going to take advantage of it. So in the first period, they score the first goal of the game right away into that game. There's a guy late, doesn't get back in time, gives off an odd man rush. Get ready to hear this over and over again because it happened over and over again. As the game goes on, it's the next goal by Gabe Vilardi in that situation. One of the Devils players gets hurt, and rather than trying to gut it out, just slowly skates off the ice, handing the Jets the advantage, which they go down and use, and they score. After that, the Jets get a 2-on-0 from their starting in their own zone. This is bad hockey, simply, people. If the Winnipeg Jets had been doing this, people would have been up in arms about it. And then Nito Niederreiter's goal is another goal in which it's just a chip off the boards, and it's a 2-on-1, an odd man rush starting in the Jets' own end. This was a game in which the New Jersey Devils completely fell apart and seemed to have zero interest in playing defense in this game. Funny thing about it, heading into the game, their coach had said, we need to cut down on the odd man rushes. And then they give up 4 ridiculous odd man rushes in this game that the Winnipeg Jets take advantage of. Still right to the end of it, it ends up being rather close. The Winnipeg Jets pull it out 4-3, up 4-1 at some point. 4-3 is the final score. They come out with the points, yes. Listening to Scott Arniel after the game, seemed to think that this was a better game. I think we established this after the last game, after Ken took the microphone and no other questions were asked. I'd asked the next day about the difference between that game. I'd said, listen, I'm not seeing much of a difference between the game against the Florida Panthers, the game against the St. Louis Blues, in that Detroit Red Wings game, and that I see a Winnipeg Jets team that's trying to grind the game down to absolutely nothing happening, a non-event hockey game, and just hoping that, the other team makes mistakes, not really generating as much. Well, tonight they get the mistakes, right? And I'd love to sit here and say the Winnipeg Jets found a recipe for hockey where they forced the opposition into a bunch of mistakes rather than saying they played an opposition that just was out to lunch and made all the mistakes that their head coach said they weren't going to, or they were going to focus on not making before the game. Scott Arniel, I don't think he thought that this one was a Picasso, but he seemed a lot higher on this game than the last game. I don't think this is a better game for the Winnipeg Jets than the game that they played against the Detroit Red Wings. And let me just go on record again and say Scott Arniel gets paid a lot of money to be an NHL coach and drive a team. So I would remember that when I'm saying I see things differently than he does, because clearly this is a guy who gets paid to get a certain result out of hockey players. I just sometimes think that coaches are maybe saying things a little bit differently than is reality. Sometimes they'll say things to boost the confidence of their team. I'm not really sure where it goes, but I don't see this as a marked improvement over their game against the Detroit Red Wings, a game that they were admonished for playing, accused of playing pond hockey. I don't see it that way. The Detroit Red Wings are a really, really good team. The Jets held them to almost nothing for 2 periods before things broke open. And then the Jets had to open things up to try and get back in that game. And then that good team took advantage of them. They didn't get on the wrong side of the score tonight, but they didn't because the New Jersey Devils were terrible in this game. I don't look at this and think the Winnipeg Jets went out and raised their level and are taking their game in a certain direction. I don't know where their game goes from here. I don't know what they look like in their next game, but I am not seeing a team that responded to a pond hockey game and came out and did anything any better. I think they ended up stepping on the ice with a team that was playing really poor pond hockey tonight and came out with a 4-3 tight victory against them. That's what I saw. We'll bring in Ken, who is there on the ice, but that is me wrapping the Toyota opening drive here. And hey, this January, it's time to Toyota at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. Finance the new 2026 BZ XLE all-electric SUV from $158 weekly, from 60 months at 1.49% with $5,599 down payment. But hurry, the offer ends February 2nd. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. All right, time to bring in the man with the best music in the business, folks. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, looking good, my man. Good to see you made it home. I know it's a long train drive.
Well, I'm not home yet, buddy.
You're not home yet?
I'm at the rink still. Yep. Sorry.
Oh, well, I thought you were heading back. Okay. All right. Good. Look how dedicated he is, folks. And look how, hey, he's a man who's up to business, and he looks like he's ready for business, of course, because he's wearing that Vittorio Rossi suit, because he went down to Corydon Avenue and walked in, loudly proclaimed he was Kenny from Kenny and Renny, that he sent himself down there, asked for Frankie and the boys, and they took care of him, did him up right. Ken, I think you and I look differently at this one. Rob Somerville here says they made the Devils make a number of mistakes and were still white knuckling it at the end of the game. I mean, I agree with the white knuckling part. I'm not so sure that the Jets made, on a 2-on-0, the far defenseman forced him to make a mistake to not cover his guy on the way out of the ice. This was like hockey 101 failed over and over again from me. But I mean, I'm watching it from TV. You were there live. What'd you see?
Yeah, I mean, this is not a template game by any stretch, and I know you mentioned it's not a Picasso. No, agreed. Jets' second period I thought was a lot better than parts of their game against the Detroit Red Wings, but I mean, this isn't a 60-minute effort. This isn't a stifling boa constrictor, but the Jets also didn't give up a whole lot in the game at even strength, is how I saw it. Which again, that's incremental growth from Saturday's game. I think they went to the harder areas a little bit more, even though the rewards didn't come from going to the hard areas. The rewards came in taking advantage and being opportunistic, as you mentioned, from what they were able to, generate, but based on mistakes. But I mean, there's a team that hasn't scored, with any regularity at 5-on-5, and they had 4 5-on-5 goals in the game. So to me, I would say that's an area that they were much better at today. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple gift wrappers in there for sure. I mean, in Brett Pesce, I'm not sure what he was doing, but Dylan Sandberg definitely saw him leaving the ice and ripped a crispy pass across. And then the Jets, on a blended shift, had their top line work some magic on a tic-tac-toe special for sure. I mean, again, what they gave up, the power play goal at the end of the second, Sean, is an elite pass from Jack Hughes. Certainly a breakdown in front of the net. Jesper Bratt can't be that wide open. But that's a high-end elite skill play against the penalty kill. And, the 6-on-5 goal, I mean, those happen. Nice pass for sure. That's also, that's Heischer with the redirection. I think one of those plays, Sean, that was odd. It was one of those where, I mean, we talk a lot about Hellebuck and the anticipation. I think Hellebuck got there too soon when he went to spread out the pads on the redirection, and because he got so little of the puck, it left an opening at the far side a little bit. So again, I thought that the Jets did a much better job in terms of what they gave up, Sean. But yeah, I mean, this isn't they didn't skate their opponent into the ground, but I mean, they did definitely play with more speed in the second. Third period, again, Nino Niederreiter was quick to point out when I asked him about it that they got sloppy at times, and that's not sustainable. You're talking about sustainability, Sean. At 700 winning percentage, impressive for sure. And if there were more stretches of this, you might believe that it's possible to do it on two, whatever, 1.5 more occasions, or 3 blocks of 10. So 30 games left. I mean, but there isn't a track record this year of 700 hockey over a sustained period of time. 9-3, sure, great. Now this stretch of games, impressive, but that 11-game losing streak is going to be incredibly difficult to overcome. Whether the Jets play like this, whether they play like they did on Saturday, or whether they played with a higher compete level like they did against the Panthers. So again, like I said, I didn't see anybody doing victory laps in the room after. I think the Jets understood what they did well in the game. I think they understood some of the areas that were deficient, and it's very clear. I mean, the Jets are playing the hottest team in the NHL on Thursday night in Tampa. I mean, the Lightning have gone 15-1-1. So we're talking about the Jets going 700, which is impressive. They're playing a team that has lost once in regulation in the last 17 games. So that means a couple of things. That means Connor Hellebuck is going to have to basically be Superman in a game against Andrei Vasilevsky. And it means the top line, which has been reunited, and we'll get into that a little bit more later, is going to have to be on its game, both ends of the ice. And it means the secondary scoring that hasn't been around as often as the Jets would like it is going to need to be there. And then they're probably going to have to win the special teams battle, which they didn't win today. So again, I called it an incremental bit of growth for them. But I mean, as you pointed out, I mean, the task at hand is incredibly challenging, even just to put together a second 700 winning percentage block in this next block. But Sean, we know this from watching the games since the NHL has been back in Winnipeg, and well before that. Those last 20 games are an absolute dogfight. They're a battle. It's hard for the best teams in the NHL to go 700, let alone a team that has inched its way to 29th overall today to go 700 for a 30-game stretch of time.
The one thing I'd say that seems to be standing out to me here is the weird part about this time of year. I do think there's opportunity at this time of year. It's that kind of middle of the season grind. And what happens in that middle of the season grind is bad teams give up. I think this team is one of those. I don't mean the Winnipeg Jets. I mean the New Jersey Devils, a team that the more I see them the last couple of years, every time I see them, I walk away shaking my head just like at some of the things they do. The play that you're talking about, Brett Pesce, like, I don't know. Like, to me, that's inexcusable hockey. The way that he skated off and just handed the Jets an odd man advantage when their best, one of the most dangerous lines in hockey is on the ice, and he just casually leaves the ice. Like, you see some of these other guys, like the Dylan Sandbergs of the world in the past, they're blocking shots, they're hurt, they're dying on the ice, but they're staying in there. And I think those are the kind of things that like bad losing teams do, but teams with like difficult culture, teams that your coach heads into a game and says, we're going to cut down on odd man rushes, and then you give up 4 odd man rushes goals. I think those are the kind of, this reminded me, Ken, of the really bad change that the Buffalo Sabres had in that one game that they came in and laid an egg against the Jets. Like, you lose hockey games by giving up, by individuals giving up in games, and that's an example of that there. But the grind that we're seeing right now, I think you see sometimes the top teams have a little bit of a dip now because they've been going so well. It's too hard to keep doing it. The bad teams kind of give up. And I think what exists in there is opportunity for the middle teams. And I think the Winnipeg Jets fall into that. But this is why, Ken, it makes it tricky, because the middle teams that we're talking about are the teams that the Jets need to catch to get into the playoffs. So some of those teams that I'm talking about are teams like the Utah Mammoth, who all of a sudden have gone 8-1-1 in their last 10. The San Jose Sharks, who've gone 6-4. So the Jets over the last 10-game stretch have gained 2 points only on that team. The LA Kings have, they've gone 8, and so they're 12 as well. As tough as things have been for the LA Kings, they've only got 2 points less than the Jets in their last 10. In their last 10, and the Anaheim Ducks, another team that they're chasing, have 14 points in their last 10. So that's the tricky part. I think if you take a look at it, you see a pattern. And right now, the Winnipeg Jets are a team that are trying to find the best at a time where the very top teams and the very bottom teams are not overly interested in showing their best. So the opportunity that exists there is something I think we're seeing the Jets take advantage of right now. The problem is too many other teams that they're in that dogfight with are taking advantage of the same thing.
Yeah, and so this is the other side of the coin here. So having watched the game that we just watched, it's hard to imagine that Devils team just went 5-2 since the Jets beat them, which seems wild based on what we saw, right? So again, and I understand people don't like scheduling. I'm just going to say this for context, not as an excuse. No excuse for a team that enters the game 7 points out of a playoff spot to display that type of effort after playing better hockey. So at the end of the Devils road trip, with this crazy storm that has ripped through the Northeast, the Devils played in Seattle against the Kraken. And then, Sean, they flew to Detroit and got there, I think, what day are we? So at Sunday night at close to midnight, got up in the morning, then flew home yesterday and arrived at 11 or noon or whatever it was. So instead of flying straight home because of the storm, they got themselves into the Eastern time zone, but then their body clock decided not to show up today. So anyways, just for context, so maybe that's not the way the Devils have been playing, but that doesn't look like a team that's going to challenge for a playoff spot, right? I mean, the Leafs are now out 7 points out of a playoff spot.
Yeah.
It's wild to, try to make sense of what's happening in this crazy Olympic schedule. There's nights when teams look like world beaters. There's nights they look like they never will win another game this season. So the weird thing, we think we have a pretty good idea of what LA looks like, Sean, right? We've seen LA be really good. We've seen them finish ahead of the Oilers, and we've seen them lose to the Oilers on four seasons in a row in the playoffs, but they know what the grind looks like. Yeah. What we know about San Jose and about Utah, and even to a degree about Anaheim, we don't know how they're going to handle the grind, whether before they were kind of out of it and playing free. Now they're playing kind of with house money, but those teams wanted to level up. So how are they going to handle the stretch run? That's the one, I wouldn't say unknown, but it's not something that you can count on. So anyways, I'm not saying those teams are going to face plant and fall right out of it, but that would be the one thing that we'll be watching. But even if those teams face palm, Sean, it still requires 700 plus, right? That's the other part. So,
well, this is what we've seen. Is the 700 gets you nothing if everyone else is playing 700. So to a degree, put it this way: if the and I touched on it on the top off the top, but if the San Jose Sharks continue to win tonight, if they beat the Vancouver Canucks, and then if they win their game in hand, they're up 4-1 in the second intermission. If they win their game in hand, or the LA Kings win their game in hand, the 700 got the Jets 1 point over a 10-game stretch. So as I've pointed out, maintaining 700 is very unlikely for the Winnipeg Jets. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to happen. That's the pickle that you're in right now, is because you're in this situation where even good hockey may not get you into it. But yeah, I don't know. This is tricky. Let's get to talking a little bit more, drilling down on the Jets.
Sure.
definitely a bit of a pristine roofing wake-up call, at least when it comes to, some off the rush kind of scoring. And I gotta say, like, absolutely gorgeous passing plays between Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Gabe Vilardi. It made you forget, like, just how pretty those three are when they get together like that. So definitely
break up the top line.
There you go. Northland Rick is the guy you want to get a hold of at 204-981-6289 to give your home the pristine roofing and siding wake-up call. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the pristine roofing and siding wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. Okay, Ken, what did you see with those three players back together that kind of unlocked that weaving that we see?
Sure. And again, just it's important to remember too, the goal in the first period is on a blended shift. Alex Iafallo had changed. The Jets didn't go to the reunion until the second period, even though that line had combined for an even strength goal already in the first. So that was kind of just a fortuitous line change, first by the Jets, and then a terrible line change by Brett Pesce. And Sean, I texted you this earlier. I'm completely baffled and blown away. It's a bad change, but why is there no one on the bench alerting him to what is happening? Maybe it's too late, but you can't just coast off the ice there. Someone has to say it's a 2-on-1 coming, turn around and try to get in the play like that.
It was brutal.
That to me is ridiculous.
If this was a goal against the Winnipeg Jets,
right,
we would be going off on this, and rightfully so. And another one of the things that I've said in the past, when we said the Winnipeg Jets aren't, like, they don't do the things last place teams do. Right. That's the kind of thing bad teams do. The Winnipeg Jets don't do stuff like that. That was atrocious, Ken. That was disheartening hockey.
Yeah, it was just wild. That's what I'm saying. I can't believe that no one kind of tried to get him to, tell him to wake up that there was something happening, whether you're on the ice or on the bench. That was just wild. Anyways,
the bench seemed as asleep.
That's what I mean. They didn't even. Oh wait, there is a pass across ice.
Honestly, Ken, like I don't excuse him for that. I'm
not excusing him. I'm just saying that there's got to be some reaction.
I'd rip the bench for not saying anything, but he is literally skating off the ice knowing, when you're going off the ice, you know how many guys are back. And he's basically skating into Kyle Connor, full on ripping it up and coming down the ice like that. And as Kyle Connor blows past him, his reaction is one of indifference. It's not like, oh my God, it is literally like he's in his own world and he has no care. Go score on my team. I don't care right now. This is demoralizing hockey that you're seeing played by the Devils in that moment there.
Yeah, super frustrating. And that's anyways, it doesn't matter whose fault it is, but Pesce is the one to blame for sure. It just was a wild play, but the finish on that play is elite level finish. That is, tic-tac-toe of the utmost degree. Great feed by Vilardi to Connor. Connor gets it to Scheifele. Scheifele scores his, he's up to 26 now. There it is, 26th of the year. And Sean, this is something we've talked about before. I think this was the 6th or 7th time this year. I think 6th time Connor and Scheifele had gone 2 games without a point. They haven't gone 3 games without a point through 52 games this year, which is impressive. Yes, everyone wants consistency and all that stuff, but for the last 2 games, Connor and Scheifele weren't good enough. But today they were able to connect on 2 incredible plays. And Sean, we talk about the passing, the Vilardi to Connor elite. The Scheifele play to Vilardi is also elite on both fronts. Incredible job by Scheifele to look off the defender and then rip it across. And then Vilardi absolutely roof daddies his shot. Unbelievable shot for his 20th of the year, 4 years in a row with 20 goals. Just impressive stuff. And, it's funny, just timing is everything. You're always trying to bank things for off days. But I spoke with Gabe Vilardi in the morning, and one of the things he talked about was the need to get a little bit more going offensively and being able to use his shot a little bit more. So anyways, sometimes you try to bank a story and that player is, -4 and has the worst game of his life. And sometimes that player has a goal and an assist and, things work out just fine. But I liked a lot of what I saw from that line. Yes, of course, there are certain plays where the defensive part is not elite, but the goal that came against the Scheifele line was, a rare flub by Alex Iafallo. And yes, I mean, I think that Mark Scheifele, maybe could have attacked the puck with Paul Cotter a little bit better on the play. But it was a bad pass by Iafallo. He didn't want to pass it slowly. He fanned on it. So anyways, that the goal against was not a great one. But again, I saw that less of a effort issue than a mistake that happened, and a mistake that isn't very prevalent for the Jets in terms of puck management on a zone exit. With, again, it was an unpressured zone exit where he just whiffed on the pass, and then they took it the other way and attacked him.
So I want to make it clear, and I've said this, there may have been gifts here by the New Jersey Devils, and I've made it clear. I honestly think that there was a lot of inexcusable hockey by that team. Ken can head out while we do this. But the one thing that I'll say is, listen, if you're given a gift and that gift is an odd man rush, you still have to take advantage of that odd man rush. And what we saw tonight from that top line and their ability to take advantage of those moments in the game. Like, there's a ton of times that 3-on-2s happen in a game. I think the Winnipeg Jets, for the most part, are pretty darn good at defending those kind of things. Their defensemen are good at standing up players at the line. But let's take that Velarde goal as the perfect example of this, because it's just so well played. And what it is it's Kyle Connor's coming up the ice. It's a 3-on-2, a gift. Yes, he comes, he's flying full speed, recognizing that he's going full speed. Gabe Velarde and Mark Scheifele have to hold up to make sure that he gets across the line, but they also don't just drag their feet and go at the line. They drift. And as they drift, what they're doing is they're trying to put pressure on the two defensemen to drift and open up the middle of the ice, right? It also allows them to drift and make sure that they've got space to get away from that player, because you may want to drift as a defenseman, but you can't drift too much. So you're basically going into a spot where you're going to be able to get the puck. What happens is Kyle Connor passes the puck over to Mark Scheifele, and then with that speed buildup, what he does is he slashes through the two defensemen. But it's the way that he does it. It's the angle he takes. So you'll notice when guys go and they take breakaways or shootouts, a lot of times they'll pick up the puck and they'll scoop way over to the boards, and then they'll come across in front of the net. Why do they do that? Well, it forces the goalie, if you're coming in at an angle, to not only have to close back into his own net, but to have to do it at an angle. I'm certain that there's people telling you out there it's harder for a goalie to do that. If you come in on one plane, it's 1D. If I'm coming straight at the guy, I just have to slowly back into my net. Tico Napoli can back me up on this if he wants to, or tell me I'm wrong, regardless. But you only have to do that. But if you're coming from the side, you need to close back into your net and you need to move. Well, Kyle Connor does a really good job of slashing in between the two players, but in a way that the defenseman who's got Gabe Velarde is tempted to follow him in, worrying about a pass getting back into the middle and Kyle Connor going straight in. So that pressure that he applies forces that guy to pull over a little bit more, and that leaves Gabe Velarde a little bit more open. But as he cuts across the ice and goes in behind the defenseman that's defending Mark Scheifele, now that defenseman has to worry about Mark Scheifele maybe trying to pass the puck behind that defenseman to try and get it to Kyle Connor, who's now moved in behind him. So what does that guy got to do now? Well, he can't defend the pass across to Gabe Velarde. He's got to worry about the puck getting behind him to Kyle Connor. So basically what Kyle Connor does, it looks like he's just made the first pass. The guys are thinking it's the second pass. He hasn't done anything more. But what he's done is he's entirely opened Gabe Velarde wide open, so that now Gabe Velarde knows he's open. He knows he's going to be able to get the puck. He knows he's going to get it clean, and that allows him to attack the net the way that he does. Once he gets the pass, it's in the back of the net. It's because these guys are so good at understanding. It's three guys on the ice now that have a very good understanding of how to move the defenders like chess pieces to move their sticks, to open up passing lanes. And that's why you get that prettiness. Alex Iafallo has been on that line and he's made things work. He grinds, he jumps in, he gets the puck. There's a little bit more low to high kind of scoring when he's on the ice. Get to the front of the net. Mark Scheifele's in behind the net, pass it out in front, boom, it's in the back of the net. But he doesn't have this capability because when he's out there, he's a little more one-dimensional, drive the back post kind of thing. And what it does is it allows the other defenseman who's defend the pass a little bit easier, to pay a little more mind to Kyle Connor in that situation. These are three guys who know how to play off each other, who recognize the little bit of chess moves that are being made by their line mates, and then going to the right spots to get there. You saw it on the first goal. You saw it on the second goal. These players are magic together. Now, the Jets do get secondary scoring in this game. You get these guys back together, and they do what they're doing. It's honestly at a point where it's almost impossible to stop this line from scoring. They're going to get 1, maybe 2, possibly 3 points a game if you leave those guys together. The problem in the past has been, are they able to get secondary scoring? And my question to you, Ken, becomes the second line and what happened to it tonight. I was going to hand out the flame and comfort, and it's going to have to be to someone that I forgot to start, but they basically made the comment that, yeah, line 1 went, but where was line 2 on this night? What happened to Jonathan Toews and Cole Perfetti with the loss of Gabe Vilardi? I think it's a great comment, and I think it's worth the flame and comfort hot take of the game, the good kind of hot take. And hey, that is your hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. And when you get there, you will find it's one of the most impressive showrooms here in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. Visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of it for you. Ken, we know what Gabe Vilardi going on the top line did for that top line. We both talked about it. What did it do losing him on the second line?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly impacted the second line, but Sean, I also would say that, I mean, and even with talking to Gabe, he agreed. The second line has been a little quieter for the last 5 or 6 games. It wasn't just today. I think that's now 1 goal in 6 games for Perfetti. Sorry, 1 goal in 7 games for Perfetti, 1 point in that span. Toews has 1 assist in 6 games now, and going into the game, Vilardi had 1 goal in the last 5 games, or 1 goal in the last 5 games, and he had been gone 4 games without a point. So that trio, which had really started to get the generation of stretching out the lineup and getting secondary scoring from an area that needs to be primary scoring, Sean, now that's dipped to, a secondary scoring level that has fallen off considerably also. Actually, I mean, some folks, including Infinity Comet, said he didn't like Pearson on the second line. I actually don't mind him there. Again, it's probably not an optimal place for him, but I don't mind giving him a shot there. I mean, Tanner Pearson has 7 even strength goals this season. That's a pretty good number for a guy who's had mostly fourth line minutes and some third line minutes. So, second line needs to get cooking again. Their ice time has also been down a bit, Sean. I mean, again, today, Perfetti's ice time, 16 shifts for 12:34. Toews was 16 shifts for 13:03, and that includes almost 2 minutes on the power play. So that obviously is a factor. We're used to that line playing a lot, but Sean, that's to your point from the other day, that's because the Lowry line is getting going again in a lot of ways as well, right? So the Lowry line is playing those second line minutes that the debate always happens. So Lowry has 20 shifts for 16:26, Niederreiter 15:35, and Nemesnikov 15:43. So so at a time when I think that the second line has dropped off, the third line is elevated. I mean, I know we talked about this during the game the other night. Even though it's probably not at its peak, it's at least going a little bit better. And hey, I mean, we also can't ignore this. Vlad Nemestikov makes a great play on the 2-on-1, Sean, and Niederreiter, great finish. He joked that he closed his eyes and just hammered it home. But Nemestikov missed an empty net play, and he missed a wide open net situation when the puck bounced off the back of the net. Now, Jack Hughes makes an awesome play, Sean, to get his stick in the lane. But when you have one goal in the last 39 games and the puck bounces off the end boards towards your stick and the goalie is not there, you got to find a way to bang that. You got to win that battle, right? I mean, and Nemestikov knows this also. I'm not here to criticize. I'm just saying that when you're going through a funk, this is what happens. You can have 3 grade A scoring chances in one game and come away with nothing in terms of goal scoring. Now, he's obviously going to feel better about his offensive game based on making a nice pass on a 2-on-1 play. But Sean, Nemestikov could have had 2 points easily and probably 4 points with any luck right now. So he's in one. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. Offensively, he is in one. But Sean, I like Nemestikov on that line. He's been a little bit more engaged physically. Though that feisty Nemestikov is the best version of Nemestikov. So I think that has been working out pretty well for him. And again, you and I have talked about this too. I mean, Cole Koepke now scored for the 5th time in the last 19 games after going 17 games to start the season without a goal. I think there's got to be some temptation to give Koepke a little bit more in terms of maybe a chance with Lowry at some point. I'm not sure if it's with Nemestikov or Niederreiter, but I think that he can also provide that element with his speed game that can help the forechecking that makes the Lowry line so, allows it to excel when they're on their game. So anyways, sorry I took that around the block with 2 other lines.
On. Let me respond to the Koepke thing, to the idea of that. So Ken suggesting that he could score more if he was with Lowry.
I'm not sure he could score more. I think he could make a bigger impact.
Why
whether that's scoring? Well, because he would bring a forechecking element that Niederreiter isn't providing to the same degree anymore.
I guess so. Well, you're messing with.
And again,
you here now, Ken.
Sorry,
sorry, you're messing with.
Niederreiter scored, so he can still score.
Ken
is
suggesting that Koepke would score more up on that line.
Yeah, sure, I am too. Sorry,
you can score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now, that's what we call a win. Head to cambrian.mb.ca/rates for more. And Ken, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out while we're at it? And I won't even interrupt you.
I'll need a rebuttal because I butchered that so badly. I'm going to actually explain it properly in a minute here. If you have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast. So, sorry, I think that Koepke can help bring the forechecking element and maybe provide a little bit more offense given the ice cold drought on the goal scoring front for Nemestikov. So maybe you keep Nino there because he has the ability to finish, even though his numbers are down a bit this year. I think he's been playing a little bit better lately. His finish is coming back. So maybe you go with that route. But then the other temptation is, because we know there are times when Nemestikov and Niederreiter play well together, you know how I feel about Morgan Barron, maybe, and his ability to be on that third line. So maybe it's Barron, Lowry, Koepke, and then you have Nemestikov, Niederreiter, and Pearson as the fourth line. But anyways, it's just this is not like last year when you don't break up the third line because they're too good. The third line is trending, I think, but I think I'm not sure they're at the optimal place yet. And I think that Nemestikov can feast on some fourth line competition if his minutes change a little bit too. It's not a demotion to punish him. It's because it may help him get going offensively, because I think if he's playing on the fourth line, this is a guy that's been a double-digit goal scorer consistently, and maybe he can, take advantage of some fourth line matchups.
It sounds a little bit like like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic to me. I mean, Kepke, I don't expect that much more offensively from him if he moves up. I mean, I think it's fairly well established. Like what he's getting is what he's getting. And for me, he's a perfect example of a guy who's like, people used to talk about, this was the thing that I was always, at odds with. Sometimes I'm at odds with certain things about the analytics community and the whole points per 60 thing, where people were just like, well, this guy's getting this many points per 60. He should be playing 20 more minutes a night, right? Because when he scores this at 6 minutes a night, he would be scoring that at 26 minutes a night, right? Kepke is a guy I think succeeds because he's right in the wheelhouse. He's like an example of a coach that puts him out for the amount of time that he should be out there. I don't know that he changes that line that much if he goes up to it. I don't think that his production is that much more moving guys down. I mean, maybe you do it just to try and create something, and it's an idea of where you haven't gone to create yet, but
tip of the spear is what I mean, Sean. We've been talking about all this. They haven't replaced that Appleton element.
Yeah.
The player with the, Barron is also that. But in terms of speed and getting on the forecheck heavily, I think Kepke has the most similar skill set to that in terms of maybe starting the disruption on the forecheck. That's why I mention it.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, I'm not saying he's a perfect third line player. That's the element that I think that he could help bring to that line. But again, Nemesnikov can also do that at times also when he's feeling at his most confident.
Nemesnikov
not at the same
do
level.
it the way that Mason Appleton did. And that's the problem with this team, is it's just that half second all across the lineup. I've said it all year. It's a delicate ecosystem. You move one guy out, you slow that line down by a second on the forecheck, and it doesn't look the same. You are that close to being a massive success, and you're that far away from things just falling off the rails in the other direction. So I do kind of like the idea of it, Ken. I think another part of that is the idea that Mason Appleton played with that line for so long, and they knew each other so well.
The chemistry.
Guys in and out. Hey, if the plan is to do that and try and build towards next year, Ken, I'm all for it. You've won me over on it. If you're thinking we need to get that for this team to be effective, and let's be honest with ourselves. We haven't talked about it enough on this podcast this year, but one of the reasons the Jets were so effective last year is because their third line erased everybody and was dominant and was like the culture carrier and the effort carrier night after night after night. And they just haven't been that this year to the same degree. So I think you're right, Ken. You should be trying to replicate that. I do think one of the things that we talked about earlier in the year that you didn't expect to happen, you said you didn't expect it to happen, I think has happened. I think Nino Niederreiter is a year older. So is Nemesnikov. These are players in their 30s. And I do think that there's been a slight regression. I don't just look at this and think that it's you lost those players. I think they lost those players and some players got older, and they're just, like I said, you're a quarter of a second away from being not as effective as you were. And I think that we're seeing that, but I'll buy into your suggestion of Kepke just because it's at least an effort towards rebuilding what I think was truly the heartbeat of this team last year, and that was that third line. It's crazy how often we talked about that third line in this podcast last year and the year before, and rightfully so. And it's funny because it's just kind of dawning on me how little we've talked about it this year, because it hasn't been that this year. It's been a good third line. Last year, I do believe it was the best third line in the league. You wouldn't even start that conversation this year. You want to say something before we move on? I want to move back to the second line.
Yeah, because the Jets are about to face Tampa, Sean, and you were there for a lot of those Stanley Cup runs. I mean, the Blake Coleman, Yanni Gourde combination platter with Barclay Goodrow. I mean, that was the same kind of idea, right? John Cooper leaned on those guys in those championship years, and to the point where Julian Breezeball went back and brought Yanni Gourde back to the team after he had left to the Seattle Kraken, right? So it's such an important line. And Sean, we just looked at the Florida Panthers, and of course these guys are playing in a different role because of the injuries this year. But part of the reason the Panthers won the Cup again last year was because their third line was Brad Marchand, Anton Lundell, and Eetu Luostarinen, right? I mean, that took over as the best line in hockey after the trade. You couldn't call it that for the year because Marchand was only there for 15, 20 games or whatever. So anyways, I think it's important. And this again is why Morgan Barron is an effective fourth line center. I still think he can have a bigger impact if he's playing and riding shotgun with Adam Lowry based on the skill set and the skating ability and the ability to disrupt also. So anyways, it's just a thought. Now give me all your thoughts on the second line.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to that and say that there was so for a time there when the Jets won 4 straight games, if you go back and you remember it had bled over from the previous 2 games before that. One of the ways that they were doing it. So tonight they did it all off the rush, right? And I guess what I'm getting to with this is like one of the things about and I haven't got to use this for a long time. One of the things about the top line scoring the way they did is it's a little snake charmer-esque. Do you know what I mean? That weaving, sure. Pass it over here, pass it over there, boom, it's in the back of the net, and it looks great. But can you expect your opposition to just skate off the ice and give you a 3-on-2 like they don't care about it? Can you expect your opposition to not back check and get the high guy? Can you expect your opposition to simply allow you to chip it by you and go get a 2-on-0? The reason why, like someone came in here, Dom Zappia, I think, was like, oh, I came in and we're halfway. You'd think we lost tonight. Dom, you've been watching this enough to know that when we look at games and I don't know that Ken feels as strongly as I do, that we don't think are the blueprint that you can carry going forward. We're not going to blow smoke and be like, oh, this is an amazing game because they won. Because that's the only thing that we need to see here is 2 points. They won. Everything's great. It's amazing. No, you're not going to get a game where your opposition is going to give you chance after chance after chance after chance at odd man rushes. It's just not sustainable. It's not going to happen. The Jets were playing a style of game when they won those 4 straight where they were going and they were getting scoring opportunities by throwing it to the front of the net and just creating the chaos. Nobody benefited from that more than Jonathan Toews. And so I think what's happening now with that line is a little bit less. You talked about it. They haven't been producing as much lately. And what they have been producing, that Cole Perfetti goal a couple games back against Florida is just a really, really great forecheck that works against there. But they're not having that success. And I think what happened with the Winnipeg Jets is when they won those 4 games, teams start taking notice. They start paying attention. How are these teams beating other teams? And the Winnipeg Jets were obviously beating teams by just going low to high, shoot it on net, create the chaos, tip it in, or bang it in on the doorstep. That's how they were doing it. So you'll notice after that 4-game winning streak, teams started defending against the Jets differently. They started making sure that their defensemen were looking up ice, that they're defending the shot now. They stopped defending or trying to catch guys on the boards. And when it went up top, the defensemen look up top and they're trying to stop the puck before it gets to the net. And to me, that effectively nullified that line and its ability to score because they were getting a very specific type of goal over and over and over again. The puck's got to get to the front of the net if you're going to bang in a rebound. And if it doesn't get there, then it's not working. And that's the one thing that I brought up at that time is the Jets were having the same kind of offense over and over and over again. Last year, it worked so often because the Jets could very routinely score on forcing turnovers on the forecheck and getting it in. So the Jonathan Toews to Cole Perfetti type of goal. They did that, but they did it on the routine over and over and over again. They could score off the rush. They could generate by just grinding you and passing it around in the zone until boom, it was in the back of the net, which isn't happening as much this year. And they could throw it from low to high, throw it on net, and bang that puck in. When you can only do one kind of offense, now a team can say, we need to stop this type of offense, and we can stop that team. I think that happened to the Winnipeg Jets. I think that's why they went from winning 4 straight games to losing 4 of their last 6 and not being as effective. And I think it's shown with that second line more than any other line because that's the kind of offense that line had been generating. And with teams coming in and being like, if you want to beat the Jets, you need to do this. They've targeted the thing that had made that second line effective, and it's not as effective anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've got time for the argument for sure. They need to do more. I mean, it's
This is funny. This is probably the first time in 3 years that I've said snake charmer, and and Mr. Meowcat says I knew Renny would say snake charmer. Hey, you knew it.
Good
You knew
prediction.
at some point in the next 3 years I was going to say it. You nailed it, Mr. Meowcat. Okay, Ken. Got to say, we're trying to make sure we got, hopefully we got that all covered off. The way Myers Drugs has you covered off all across the city of Winnipeg, because as you know, they deliver anywhere in the city of Winnipeg. So if you have any pharmaceutical needs, any health food needs, any supplemental needs, you know who to give a call. Call the folks at Myers Drugs. They'll come to you. Okay, Ken, Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, a couple stand out. I think I had one before on a back check that, I was actually Niederreiter, what I thought was a really good play. But I'm going to go to the Dylan DeMello block when it was hair on fire for the Jets during the 6-on-5. I can't remember who took the shot, but it was an impressive block at a time when the Jets needed one, because it looked like they might be giving up the lead and it might have been a tie game.
I'll let it stand. That's a great candidate for the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And Ken, that brings us to the hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, there's 3 good candidates, 2 breakaways. One was kind of, I get it, it was not a great shot on, I think, maybe the Meyer breakaway, but I thought that there was I know there was a redirection, sneaky redirection that I think maybe even bounced off Luke Shen, where it was a Plinko special. Again, obviously the breakaway save on Hughes or Bratt was an impressive save for sure and timely, but I thought at the time, we've been talking so much about deflected pucks, and Sean, you asked Hellebuyck flat out about deflected pucks and screen shots. There was one that Hellebuyck made an exceptional save. It looked like a kind of a harmless shot, but after it was tipped and went off a body, Hellebuyck readjusted his positioning to keep it out of the net. So I like the breakaway saves, but I'm giving the keg save on the redirection.
I'll allow that as well. That's Ken's and my hashtag the keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, that would be James Fulcher. James, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Ken, I actually wanted to get your take on Connor Hellebuyck's response to that question that I'd asked about the degree of difficulty going up when we pointed out the stats that the Jets are the second highest team
Right
in the league at allowing screened goals, and something like the 10th highest in the league at allowing tipped goals.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. I mean, I definitely caught my attention. He kind of got into a debate about numbers, and numbers don't always tell the whole story, but he also kind of pointed out that the numbers haven't been the same. So I don't know, you were there. You tell me what you thought about it. I didn't get a great read for it. Feels like that's one of them that you needed to be there to get the context, because when I read the words, I wasn't sure where he was going with it exactly.
I mean, he did say, and I thought that this was, and I I think the tricky part about this when it comes to goaltenders is that if you say yes, you're basically saying my team isn't as good in front of me as they were last year.
Right.
Which is patently obvious. I mean, we can all see it.
But he would never say it.
He would, well, you can't.
At least not to us.
No, but in the end, he did say that it feels like there's a lot more goals this year that I just don't have a chance on, right, which is essentially another way of saying it. And if anyone's going to see that, it's going to be your goalie, right? It's going to be your goaltender who understands, like, I'm not seeing the puck as much this year. I'm not having it. I didn't have a chance to stop that one. I can imagine it would feel really tricky to be a goaltender like Connor Hellebuyck, who, as we talked about in the last couple of years, 2 years ago, he was basically, there was not a starter in the league who faced shots anywhere near as rudimentary as Connor Hellebuck did. He was facing shots on average way, way, way out compared to other goaltenders because the Jets were just pushing all the shots to the outside. So you go from just feeling like you see everything and everything's routine to all of a sudden now it just looks different. And I actually think it can be difficult. And here's the deal. People just think he's Connor Hellebuck. There was a time when the Jets were bad defensively, and he was phenomenal, and he kept them in games. And then there was a time when Connor Hellebuck was playing behind an airtight, solid defense, and he was great behind that team as well, which means Connor Hellebuck can play it any way you want to play it, right? And we've talked about that before. There's a skill in being that goalie who just is high volume, always facing difficult shots and still being really good, and being that goalie who plays really, really well behind an established system. And Connor Hellebuck proved that he can be both. I think what this year proves is it's hard to be both one right after the other. Do you know what I mean? Like the Jets were a slow build getting to be a better team. So as the team built its game defensively, Connor Hellebuck saw the slow change of what that team was. Now the Winnipeg Jets went from being an ironclad defensive team last year and the best defensive team in hockey to now a team that's defensively porous and having a lot harder time in its own zone. And it happened like that. It happened to the point that everyone here is surprised, and we have half the questions that we've been handling this year is what's happened to the Winnipeg Jets? How come they're so much different? Well, no one's going to see that better than Connor Hellebuck, who's suddenly in net, and suddenly there's shots whizzing past him over his shoulder that he's like, where the heck did that come from? How did that one get through? Why did that one change direction? Because he hasn't had to face that. So my take a little bit on what's happening with Connor Hellebuck this year is a little bit of what I said last year. Connor Hellebuck was as good as he was last year because he played behind the best defense in hockey. And a lot of people wanted to say the Jets were who they were solely because of Connor Hellebuck. That wasn't the case. It was never the case, but people wanted to believe that. But those same people have to understand that in a year later, when the Winnipeg Jets suddenly aren't as good defensively, then it kind of exposes your take when the goaltender struggles with it. I think if the Jets kept playing like this, Connor Hellebuck would get better and better towards the end of the year because he'd kind of start figuring out the things that have been going wrong. I think we're actually seeing that. I think he's been getting better, even though the numbers are starting to show he's getting better. The wins haven't come as easy. He's won 5 games of 19 since he returned. But I think he'll get better and better as soon as, he has time with that. And then maybe next year, he'd be back to being the guy that takes a team like this and gets them over the playoff line because he's just that amazing. He's got that in him. He's got that capability to do it. It's just hard when it goes from being, we're this good right now, and all of a sudden, wow, we just can't do the things that we did last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Certainly, the environment has certainly changed, and puck management and the breakdowns in zone were not happening at the same rate as they were last year either. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. We know it's been busy for Hellebuck since coming back from the injury. I mean, where's the Comrie start coming, Sean? I mean, is there one in this 5-game block? I mean, it'll be.
I think there has to be. I mean, he's won 2 of his 3 starts. He's looked really
that's
good.
What I mean. So
at some point it's got to be.
So maybe the Montreal game. I mean, you're playing Hellebuck against Dallas, divisional game.
Yeah.
Maybe consider him against Florida, I guess, on Saturday. But anyways, it'll be interesting to monitor for sure. Yeah. And then too, coming out of the break, I mean, you got to expect Comrie's going to get the game against Vancouver, provided Hellebuck is playing for Team USA as the number 1 guy. Because if he isn't, then you're going Hellebuck right away out of the gate if you're trying to win, right? So it's going to be super interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, I think that Connor Hellebuck likes his game. This just in, the sky is blue. I mean, that didn't tell me anything, but I think there's evidence to back up that, the rebuilding part after the knee, after the arthroscopic knee surgery, there are elements that are on display. I think he's starting to look more and more comfortable in the crease. I think he's tracking the puck better, moving better. I mean, those are all things that, Connor himself, Sean, you were there. He said it's part of the general in-season building. But again, last year when the Jets went 15-1, the building was happening too in real time, but the team was also playing out of its mind. So it's super. Yeah, I mean, goaltending is a it's a tricky thing, and Connor Hellebuyck is one of the best in the business, and it'll be interesting to see how things progress both in the remaining 4 games before the break, and then to see what happens at the Olympics. I mean, this is going to be. I still think he's the number 1 guy, but I'm not Bill Guerin. I don't know what he's valuing or what he's monitoring or how they feel about the situation between he and Jake Ottinger, who has had more big game starts deeper into the playoffs the last couple of years, but he's also been outplayed twice by Stuart Skinner in the Western Conference Finals. So like there are a lot of elements at play that are fascinating for hockey fans and hockey observers.
Yeah. I think you may have nailed it, Ken, in that in a year where the 3 goaltenders for the U.S. who have clear pedigree are not having the best years, that Connor Hellebuyck may have earned the job last year with his performance in the 4 Nations, because they know what he looks like behind that team. So that's their expectation that he can go back to that. And again, I mean, I would be the first person to say what you're seeing from Connor Hellebuyck this year is Connor Hellebuyck playing behind a porous defense he hasn't had to play behind for a long time. I'm not excusing it. I mean, again, if he's a Hart Trophy type winner, someone had pointed out that he hasn't had any shutouts this year. A Hart Trophy goaltender should have stolen a number of games for your team already this year. It hasn't happened. I'm not excusing that, but in a year where all 3 of those goalies are down, he may be the safest bet just because you knew what he looked like behind that team, which is slightly different, but not that much different from what that team was.
And plus the motivation too, Sean. I mean, we know how Connor feels about playing for his country, and the fact that he played great, but they didn't win. So I think that there is an element of that could factor in also.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's is going to have Quinn Hughes this time around also. So
yeah. Okay. That's it for us. Time to shut it down. Before we do go, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we implore you to appreciate this, our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison, Toyota on Region, Vittorio Rossi, Cambridge Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, the fine folks at Myers Drugs, the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnson Group, and of course, the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to everybody out there. Let's get together and do this all over again after the next one as Kenny continues his road travels. Bye-bye, folks.